You're cleaning out a closet. Or maybe you're helping your parents move. Or maybe it's 3 in the morning and you can't sleep and you're just looking through an old box for no reason you could explain. And then you find it. Something from when you were 7, or 8, or younger. Something that has no business still existing. A stuffed animal missing an eye, a plastic toy with a broken wheel, a blanket that's barely a blanket anymore. And you pick it up, and something happens. Your whole chest does this thing, like you just ran into someone you forgot you missed. You weren't expecting that. You don't even fully understand it, but you put it back carefully. You don't throw it away. You never throw it away. And if someone else tried to? Something in you would say no before you even had time to think about why. You're not being irrational. You're not being childish. And you are absolutely not alone in this. What's happening inside you in that moment, that quiet, powerful, almost embarrassing moment, is one of the most fascinating things in all of psychology. Today we're exploring the psychology of why you form intense emotional attachments to objects from your childhood. And here's the thing. You're not broken for having them. You're not immature for keeping that worn-out toy or that faded blanket that's basically just threads at this point. Your brain is doing exactly what it was built to do. And once you understand the science of it, the way you see yourself and the things you hold onto will never quite be the same. Let's go back to the beginning, the very beginning. Psychologists have a name for those objects. They call them transitional objects, a concept first introduced by British pediatrician and psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott back in the 1950s. Winnicott noticed that children between the ages of roughly 4 months and 1 year would begin attaching to a specific soft object, a blanket, a stuffed toy, the corner of a shirt, and, crucially, and this is the important part, they weren't attaching to just any blanket. It had to be that blanket, the exact one, with the exact smell, which sounds almost obsessive, right? Until you understand why. That object became a bridge, a psychological transition point between the safety of your primary caregiver and the terrifying, exciting world beyond. When your caregiver wasn't there, the object held the feeling of them. It was portable comfort, portable safety, a piece of home you could carry in your arms. Most people assume you outgrow that mechanism, that it just fades. But the neuroscience says otherwise. Because the brain doesn't simply move on from the things it learned to depend on, it archives them permanently. Here's what was actually happening inside you every time you held that object as a child. Your brain, from birth, is a pattern recognition machine, and its primary job, not making you happy, not making you successful, but keeping you safe, is achieved by creating what neuroscientists call memory consolidation. Experiences that carry strong emotional weight get stored with extreme precision, not just the event itself, the sensory envelope surrounding it, the smell, the texture, the weight, the particular quality of light in the room. When you were small and scared and that specific stuffed animal was in your arms, your nervous system was being regulated, your cortisol levels dropping, your heart rate steadying, and your brain was recording all of it together. The fear, the relief, the texture of the toy, the warmth of feeling okay again. These weren't just memories being made. They were neural pathways being carved. Deep ones. So years later, when you hold that object, or even just see it, your nervous system doesn't just remember. It re-experiences. This isn't nostalgia. This is embodied memory. Researchers call this state-dependent recall, where you don't just think about safety, you briefly feel it again, at a cellular level, in your body, before your mind has caught up. That's not childishness dressed up in sentiment. That is your nervous system doing something extraordinarily precise. But there's something else happening alongside all of this, something most people never consider. Between the ages of 2 and 7, your brain exists in what's sometimes called a hypnagogic state, something close to a constant theta brainwave frequency, the same state adults enter during deep meditation or in the moments just before sleep. A state of profound absorption. Your brain during those years wasn't filtering experience the way an adult brain does. It was absorbing everything as foundational truth. Everything that surrounded you in that state became part of you. That toy was there when you first understood what it meant to feel comforted. That blanket was there during some of your earliest experiences of safety, of joy, of family, of home. It wasn't just an object to you. It was woven into the fabric of who you were in the process of becoming. Psychologists call this object constancy, the developmental capacity to maintain a sense of self and others even when they're not physically present. Your transitional object was one of the first places you practiced that capacity. It held your sense of self steady when the world felt uncertain. And that function, that specific, essential function, doesn't disappear just because you're older. It evolves. It deepens, actually. There's a third layer to this, and it's the one that tends to catch people most off guard. A study published in the journal Omega, one of the leading research journals on grief and bereavement, found that over 70% of bereaved adults kept objects belonging to deceased loved ones, specifically as a way of maintaining emotional connection. Not because they couldn't move forward, because the object held something that existed nowhere else in the physical world anymore. Psychologists call this relational continuity, your psyche using an object to preserve an emotional bond beyond physical absence. And the thing about that mechanism is it doesn't only activate after death, it activates after any loss. A childhood home you'll never return to. A period of your life that ended. A version of yourself that felt safer, simpler, more whole. If that stuffed animal was given to you by a grandparent who is no longer here, that object isn't just an object anymore. It's the last physical address of a relationship. Letting go of it doesn't feel like decluttering. It feels, to your nervous system, like losing the person all over again. You're not being dramatic. Your brain is doing exactly what love asks it to do. Now here's the part that most people carry quietly, and almost nobody says out loud. Most adults feel embarrassed about these attachments. There's this unspoken cultural verdict that says if you're still holding on to a childhood toy, you haven't fully grown up. That it's soft, indulgent, a little sad. The research disagrees. Completely. The capacity for strong, specific emotional attachment, including to objects, is consistently linked in psychological literature to higher empathy, deeper relational intelligence, and a more secure attachment style overall. Psychologist Sherry Turkle at MIT spent decades studying humans and their relationships with meaningful objects, and what she found was that objects carry stories. They carry relationships. They carry parts of our past self that we aren't ready or don't need to release. And people with a rich interior relationship with meaningful objects tend to have the most nuanced, developed emotional lives of anyone she studied. You're not holding on because you're stuck. You're holding on because you feel deeply. And your brain is extraordinarily good at preserving what that means. There's one final piece of this, and it's the one that ties everything together. Your attachment to childhood objects and your attachment to people don't live in different parts of the brain. They run on the same circuitry. The same oxytocin pathways that bond you to the people you love are activated by objects that carry the emotional memory of those people. The blanket isn't just a blanket. The toy isn't just a toy. They are, to your nervous system, an extension of relationship itself. A form of love made physical and portable. And when the world gets heavy, when adulthood demands more than it gives back, when things shift, when the future feels like a question with no clear answer, reaching for that object isn't a step backward. It's your nervous system accessing a resource it spent years building. That's not immaturity. That is intelligence encoded long before you had words for it. You're not someone who can't let go. You're someone who formed attachments so genuine, so deeply encoded, that they left physical traces in the objects around them. You don't love shallowly. You love in ways that last decades, that outlive the circumstances that created them, that mean something enough to keep in a box under a bed wrapped in an old shirt, like a small, slightly ridiculous, completely understandable secret. That crack in that old toy? That missing button eye? Your nervous system knows every detail. And there's something genuinely beautiful about that. So tell me, is there an object from your childhood that you still have? Or maybe one you wish you'd kept? Drop it in the comments. Tell me what it is and what it means to you. I have a feeling this one's going to open something up. If this helped you see yourself a little more gently, hit subscribe. We explore the psychology behind the things you feel but rarely have language for every single week. And if this one resonated, you're going to want to stick around for the next one.